Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Kerner, Vice President of Solutions Engineering and Lab Services from Project 44, and we are very excited to join CSCMP's first ever virtual conference. I'd like to introduce Tejuan Manner, Supply Chain Director of Cloud Customer Supply Chain Operations from Lenovo. He will be joining me today to talk about maximizing visibility ROI, how Lenovo is transforming their supply chain with data. We expect this session to last between 30 and 45 minutes, and we will hold a Q&A session at the end. Should you have a question during the presentation, please go to the icons located at the bottom of your screen and click the question mark where the Ask a Question is available, and make sure to click Submit so your question does come through. Lastly, we welcome you to download the resources associated with this session. Again, at the bottom of your screen, click on the paperclip icon to download files related to this session. And with that, thank you for being here today, and let's get this session kicked off. Tejuan, thank you for joining me today. We really appreciate it and really looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Let's start a bit with the thank you, Tejuan. Let's start a bit with the technology that is going to define the space over the next 5 to 7 years. And then we're going to drill down into the specifics of Lenovo's journey and your kind of strategy and how you're looking at things. What do you think are the key technologies that are going to have the biggest impact, and a little bit about why?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, and I appreciate the partnership Lenovo has with Project 44, and I look forward to the journey to us that are going to be on over the next few years, which is inclusive of the 5 to 7 year journey. I want to start out by mentioning just a few key terms: AI, machine learning, IoT, and blockchain. I think those are key terms a lot of people are hearing. Is it real? Does it really exist? And the answer is absolutely yes. And if you think about it, these technologies exist in your everyday life. I mean, if you look at your cellular phones, if you look at interfaces like this, if you look at when you're in your vehicle and you're using GPS, I mean, these technologies exist. You're even seeing it in your appliances now, at home. So yes, it's very real. It's not some science fiction, Terminator movie, right? I mean, it's very, very real. And a lot of your global supply chains are using these technologies to really be more efficient, to maximize revenue while minimizing cost, to expand their infrastructure and their reach, and to support their customer base, and to work closely with their suppliers. So, in the next 5 to 7 years, especially in our space, as here at Lenovo, we reach all aspects of technology, from personal phones to personal computers, via laptops, tablets, to servers for our small, medium businesses and large enterprises. And just imagine, edge computing, a lot of people will be able to have servers in their homes. So just think about that. There'll be servers in people's vehicles. Just look at what the work Tesla is doing and some of these car manufacturers that are using this technology. And a lot of our employees, will probably get to this a little bit later, are concerned about AI potentially replacing them, or replacing resources. And I don't see AI as being a supplement. I see it as being a complement to the work that we're doing and the work that other enterprises are doing, just to make us work more efficiently and smarter, and leverage the data that we have. I mean, data is a resource. It's a commodity. It's the next natural resource, much like oil and gas and energy. So what do you do with that data? So I think in the next 5 to 7 years, you'll see a lot of enterprises, small, medium, and large, leveraging that data through AI, machine learning, and blockchain, and what have you.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I want to give a definition of kind of how we view AI versus machine learning, and let me know if this kind of how Lenovo views this as well, because obviously big data is an important topic, as you highlighted. And many of the technologies that are either very forward-looking or coming down the pipe rely on quality data. When I think about AI, I think of it as a bigger concept to create intelligent machines that can simulate human thinking and behavior. Whereas machine learning is more of an application or a subset of AI that allows machines to learn from data without being programmed explicitly by a human. And to me, I find that a lot of times folks get confused on those two terms. Do you think is that consistent with what you kind of have as a definition of those two technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and we see it here at Lenovo. You really can't have machine learning without the AI interface, right? And in my view, we are introducing AI to our end-to-end supply chain, whether it be manufacturing, for example, different ways to evaluate, our output from our manufacturing test benches, right? Being able to add applications to be able to help complement our test manufacturing engineers to analyze failures, or do some type of root cause analysis to failures right there on the line. With machine learning, we like to use that data that we're seeing on the line from failures over time to be able to see trends, to be able to do analytics and algorithms, to be able to prevent or predict particular failures over time. And so we attribute machine learning to be able to leverage AI to prevent gaps or issues and disruptions in our supply chain. So yeah, very similar definition, very similar view. They both go hand in hand, and we see it as you can't have AI without machine learning or vice versa.
Yeah, great. No, I appreciate that. One of the technologies you mentioned as well is blockchain. And I think anyone that's, attending the session right now has certainly been hearing about blockchain within supply chain, probably as far back as 2016. You and I have had a recent conversation, and you had mentioned that you're seeing some real use cases that Lenovo is exploring. I think it was with your suppliers. Can you give us a little bit of insight as to what those blockchain use cases are? Because so many people, I think, feel that it's still really far out, and that there aren't any use cases that are being explored or put into production.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, blockchain is a far-reaching phenomenon in industry, if you will. And again, much like AI and machine learning, I attribute all these areas together as the technology of the future and of now. A lot of people understand blockchain as it relates to the food industry, food service. Being able to track your products all the way to its origin, right? That's the most applicable view of blockchain. Here at Lenovo, we certainly recognize that, but we've got several applications, and I'll just go through a couple of them. One is to be able to leverage. We have buy sell with our suppliers, and what we're doing is leveraging automatic payment solutions, being able to measure the automation, reducing the amount of paper trail, being able to bring on our sellers, bring on our suppliers almost immediately electronically, being able to track all their audit procedures, all their risk management procedures, all the way down to our first, second, and third tier suppliers. And then we have a solution that we call Trust Your Supplier, where now we can onboard suppliers much quicker, within 48 to 72 hours versus before. It could take weeks because we would have to send resources to the far-reaching parts of our globe, whether it's the Far East, Malaysia, Asia, down in Africa, or even in South America, to be able to audit, to do reviews of their manufacturing facilities, do reviews of their employee base and human resources. To now, Trust Your Supplier, they can upload all that data securely electronically. That way we can view it almost immediately and onboard suppliers quickly. Then in turn, we can leverage that partnership to expedite and make our supply chains more efficient and effective. So blockchain can be used in a number of different processes and different areas of your supply chain, different industries. Those are just two areas where we're using it, for automatic payment solutions and reduction in paper trail, and to, onboarding our suppliers electronically in a secure fashion.
That's interesting, and I apologize for asking that question, because I think it's going to lead to you being asked to do some use cases around blockchain in some future sessions. It sounds like you're Lenovo's pretty far advanced with actually leveraging the technology. That's great. So switching gears a bit, let's start talking about Lenovo and your visibility journey. So why did Lenovo decide to invest in visibility? What made it a priority?
Well, I think it has to start with visibility and understanding where our data is. When you think of supply chain of the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s, 10 to 15 years ago, our supply chains were so siloed. The data was always there, but internally, unless you were a logistics professional, you weren't aware of, how many shipments were coming inbound and outbound, right? If you were someone working in accounts receivable, working on the front end with the sales team and looking at forecasting and trying to predict, what large companies are bringing in orders, you had no clue about, inbound logistics or outbound or delivery times, right? You just had no clue where to get the data. Or whereas if you're on the manufacturing line, I mean, you had manufacturing line data, you knew cycle time data and SLA data and testing data, versus someone that worked with suppliers and the cost and the price of getting goods, such as processors and memory DIMMs and hard drives. All that data existed, but our colleagues were so siloed. So we knew, to reduce costs and expense. I'm keep harping on that, reducing the bottom line, our exposure and expenses. We had to see where we could, break down those barriers and silos, look at what's there, how can we maximize our end-to-end supply chain, what data is there, are there any trends to become more efficient and effective? So that was key, that was baseline, to be able to understand what data is there, break down the silos, look at all of our systems, what systems are old and grandfathered, needs to be removed and replaced with more efficient systems. And that takes time. It takes time. It takes changing the culture. There's a upfront cost of doing that. So you had to understand the long-term ROI to prove the investment is necessary. But that's the first step in reaching your potential and maximizing visibility and doing the digital transformation that we've undergone over the last 3 years.
Yeah, you mentioned a really interesting point as it relates to data, and that's just having it siloed. It's one thing to be getting the data, but it's another to actually be able to have all of the different organizations that need it, access it across the organization. Did it take any effort? Well, not really effort, but was there pushback on breaking down those silos? And, was that more of a change management exercise, or was it really just a technology exercise to get the right infrastructure in place?
A little bit of both, and I tell you that the key to transformation, whether it's digital or any other type of transformation in an enterprise, small, medium, or large, you really have to get the engagement and the buy-in from your colleagues, whether they're the new hires all the way up to the C-suite. It cannot only be a top-down approach that says, you are there, therefore you must do this, right? It needs to be from the bottom up, organically. And the way we did it, we had a couple of projects called, plus supply chain 1.0 and 1.2, and that was called auto data driven, ADD plus supply chain. And that was really our subject matter experts across all the different areas and functions of the supply chain, whether it's engineering, forecasting, inventory, systems, manufacturing, to look at what they do in their day-to-day activities and look at the data lakes and all the different systems they use, systems of record that they use, whether it be SAP, or if it's spreadsheets, right? And really bubble that up in a series of workshops to see, okay, what is it that we do? Who do I depend on for this data? What do I do with this data? What's our systems of record? And they developed a list of projects that would allow us to be able to automate, to be able to remove manual, annoying processes. So that's a benefit for them and a benefit for us, because we're being able to see really the data they depend on, the data they don't need. And that worked. And I think that's what we're going to do going forward. Whenever we're doing the digital projects or transformational projects, really get the buy-in from our colleagues and SMEs that use it, that are going to benefit from the said transformation. So yes, we still have pushback from some of our colleagues that are used to the old way of doing business. And I think you'll always have that. But it's very, very important for supply chains and businesses to transform, understand the trends, and understand what the customers are requesting. Because a lot of our customers are now requesting that end-to-end view. And look at Blockbuster, right? Blockbuster didn't listen to their customers, right? Blockbuster didn't transform their culture based off of the trends of the marketplace. And if you don't do that, you will be out of business. And so Lenovo was both listening to the trends, listening to our partners, our clients, and our colleagues to really do the right thing.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And, one of the things that we see at Project 44 as we work with large global companies like Lenovo is that oftentimes based on region, you have, obviously different operating groups. They may have different TMSs or systems of record. So you need to have a platform that has the ability to, whether it be a one-to-many network, that's global, multimodal, that can be really plugged in and leveraged across the different regions and across different technologies. And I know, we've seen that with Lenovo, where there's different types of systems of records and solutions that you want the data to flow into. So, we've seen that, for global companies, very important, making sure that it's a solution that at a minimum is API based, and then maybe has some UIs and dashboards that can also supplement the solutions that they're using to help kind of break down those silos, kind of short term and long term. So kind of moving along that. Go ahead.
Please. Absolutely. I mean, I think enterprises have a choice. I won't say it's either or, but you can either build those systems of record internally, or you can leverage external partnerships. We've tried both, and we're doing both. But from an AI perspective, we're definitely leveraging our partnership with IBM. Of course, it's no secret Lenovo and IBM has an excellent partnership, and with our friends at IBM. So we're leveraging IBM, their Sterling supply chain visibility tool, to be just that, to be able to, once we got all of our data together and have visibility of the data end to end, we're pushing that data into Sterling to leverage, their AI capabilities and being able to do algorithms and what have you. So that is going to be our system of record. That way we'll be able to partner with other companies, both internally or external, to leverage that as our system of record going forward.
Yeah, and as you know, Project 44 has a really strong relationship with IBM as well. They've been, really great to work with on some of these innovative use cases. As we kind of take a look, we talked about the data and being in different silos and some of the challenges that you've worked through. What are some of the other challenges that maybe you and your team have encountered, and how did you remove those roadblocks?
Okay. No, absolutely. I think the first one is getting data internally, right? But being a global enterprise and really wanting to maximize our efficiency as a supply chain, you can't only depend on yourself to be able to support your customers. You mentioned us being a global enterprise, and our customers can be regionalized and very demanding. But we also have our partners and our suppliers, and that's a challenge to really encourage our partners and suppliers to share their data as well. Because when you think about it, there's tons of data when you're looking at commodities or some of the parts that we use for our servers, for our mobile phones and our PCs. So it took some coercing to really have our larger tier 1 suppliers, not even tier 2 or tier 3, but some of our larger tier 1 suppliers to agree to share some data that could be sensitive. And encourage them and show them that, look, it's a win-win for not only us, but for you as well. Because our clients and our customers, I keep going back to this, our clients and our customers are expecting to see more visibility than ever before. And they're looking for customized solutions and be able to have dashboard views. And, we have to share some of our tier 1 suppliers that, hey, if we can get this visibility and access to our customers, that's not only more business for us, that's more business for you as a tier 1 supplier and downstream to your tier 2 and tier 3s. So sure. That was a roadblock. And then of course, with most enterprises, you've got, how much do we want to invest and spend upfront internally? So we have to consistently evaluate our return on investment. How soon will we get a return on this investment? Is it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months out? We got projects put on hold. So it's really, really key that we prioritize. And that's why I go back to getting input from SMEs. Will they use this solution, right? And how often will they use it? Are they going to use it now? Are they going to use it 6 months from now, 9 months from now? So those are two key roadblocks besides breaking the silos down internally, is getting the buy-in from our suppliers and the whole ecosystem end to end. And then thirdly, is how soon can we get a return on investment? How soon will the business see an improved bottom line?
Yeah, now you mentioned something really interesting when you started talking about internal users and even internal resources in general. How have you had to look at internal resources to support and leverage these new technologies? Has it been through training? Are you finding you're having to bring in folks from the outside? Do you take a hybrid approach to it? How are you really getting the teams built to leverage these new technologies and deploy them?
Yeah, it's certainly a challenge because we're asking the same resources, right? Our same colleagues that are so focused on execution, so focused on the day-to-day tactical rush, if you will, of the supply chain. We all know supply chain is a fast-paced industry, so we're having to leverage the same talent, the same resources that we depend on to execute month in and month out, quarter in and quarter out, but also be strategic and also look at how to improve and how to transform our day-to-day lives. So that's been a challenge, but we've got the buy-in, we've got the support, and that has saved us from having to bring in additional resources to focus on transforming our supply chain and increasing our visibility. But I will tell you, we are starting to look at the skills and as we look into some of the interns we're bringing in and new hires, even some of the professional hires, we're looking at data scientists, right? Data engineers, computer science, people that can understand algorithms and AI and decision trees and metrics and stuff like that. Because my civil engineering degree, it was technical, but not to that extent, right? So we certainly understand, and all the way up through Ben Massey and Renee, our senior vice president of the global supply chain, understand that, look, going back to the next 5 to 7 years, we talk about what this technology looks like, but we need to look at, what will the supply chain, resource look like? What will our teams look like? And I can tell you, there will be more data scientists in this industry. There'll be more people that understands the supply chain, but also understands, APIs and infrastructure and AI and tooling and what have you, because that is going to be necessary.
Yeah, that's a great point. And kind of talking about APIs and data quality. I mean, I know, we all agree, we've talked about this, just how important data quality is for supply chain visibility. And that's really one of the reasons why, companies are investing in it. Can you share some examples about how high fidelity data has impacted your supply chain?
Yeah, absolutely. So, one, our supply chain is completely measured by customer satisfaction. Okay, our bonus structure and our pay structure is measured by customer satisfaction. We have a scorecard metric that we track on a weekly basis on-time delivery, scheduling metric on how quickly can we schedule orders, and those two metrics are driven by AI, driven by our data. So the data that we're getting by the Plus Supply Chain 1.0 and 2.0 projects that I alluded to earlier, the work that we're doing in Project 44 with regards to looking at our inbound ETAs. I mean, that data is going directly into our systems and allowing us to be able to schedule orders on our production line more efficiently and effectively. So it's very, very important that that data is accurate and that data is vetted. So on your journey, you're definitely going to have to essentially have two screens up, if you will. The SMEs will, at least for a period of time, to go through a period of data validation and data quality. So you have to look at your old system of record and how you measured and how you scheduled orders, for example, on the manufacturing line based off of the supply that we have in transit or in inventory, and then look at our new system, our new digital transformation system. And there's going to be a period of time where our colleagues are doing some user acceptance testing and looking at both sets of data, looking at both systems of record, just to see if it's accurate or if it's usable. So again, that's going to stretch our team, but it seems to have worked well so far. But yeah, that's very, very important on this journey is data quality and validating the data, and then iterating where necessary. But that's definitely key.
The iteration part is interesting because there's always going to be more data sets, more sources of information, and that is where solutions like IBM Sterling Supply Chain Insights come in. How can you get more value out of the data that you're getting from partners like Project 44? Now, let's think about the other side of the coin. We talked a bit about how high fidelity data in general can deliver a positive impact on the supply chain. Can you now talk a little bit about how real-time visibility data has helped to navigate risk and disruptions in Lenovo's supply chain?
No, I absolutely. Just a real live example, it was the COVID pandemic that we've all dealt with for the last 6 months. our ability to pivot, being able to leverage our data has allowed us to win more trust, get more accolades, and continue to be successful as a business, even during the pandemic. This past quarter, we just got tons of praise from our customers, being able to schedule orders quickly, being able to pick the right logistics lanes, to be able to deliver early or on time, to be able to, especially in healthcare and education, being able to get our healthcare the necessary servers they needed to give them more big data, more space to analyze and support their patients, being able to get more Chromebooks out to a lot of the education entities out there. But without having that visibility to data, without being able to be nimble and to be able to move capacity from one plant to another, whether it be from our North America plant to our EMEA plant or vice versa, we would have been in trouble. We would have lost market share during the last 3 to 6 months. But more importantly, we would have lost trust and lost customers. But instead, we were able to increase both based off our ability to be nimble as a supply chain and have access to our data, know where we had capacity, know where our supply was. So that's just a real live example of us being able to adjust and be nimble and in the midst of what would have been a huge disruption in the supply chain.
That was a great example, Tejuan. Thank you. There seems to be agreement among academics that logistics is about 80% of response efforts. Obviously, food, water, and medical supplies are needed, but the logistics of these are often taken for granted. We are months into this pandemic with logistics experts saying it'll be months to get supply chains back in order. And medical experts are saying, the pandemic itself may be with us for years to come. So let's switch gears a bit and discuss how to build a business case for investing in an advanced visibility solution. What insight can you provide into the process Lenovo went through? And what other advice can you share for evaluating the ROI of these solutions?
Well, I think the first thing, any enterprise should do is really understand where the market's going, one, and being able to validate that. Two, I'm going to go back to the point of just listening to your clients. So a lot of the clients are going in this direction. A lot of the clients are transforming how they conduct business, how they interact with their customers, internally and externally. So the first thing we did was we essentially educated our internal leaders, our internal decision makers, and brought in customers so that they can hear personally, what they're asking for. And once they realize that our customers are looking for, more visibility, more access to data than ever before, that really broke down the first barrier as to why are we asking for this investment? Why are we looking to do this? Because we've never had to do that before. So I think that's the first step. One is really understanding the why and ask yourself, is that why being driven by your customer, the people that are paying your bills? Secondly, I want to reemphasize the fact that we had buy-in from the doers, right? All the way from new hires, all the way up to your middle and high end, your middle managers. They really believed in this and believe that this is the right step. And then thirdly, and this is the key piece, is being able to prove out that this will work, and this is the return on investment in terms of whether it's better customer satisfaction numbers, better efficiencies, more revenue, higher profit margin. Because at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to that. That's got to be one of the three factors that enterprises are looking at. Whether you're in logistics, whether you're a shipper, whether you're, you're in manufacturing, whatever it may be, it's going to come down to the bottom line at some point. But again, I think it's the clients, your internal colleagues, and then the bottom line in terms of profit margin and revenue versus cost.
A common challenge that I see is that shippers and LSPs struggle to understand the value of visibility in the supply chain. What is the financial and general impact of visibility as it relates to things such as identifying defects and inefficiencies, assigning value of mitigation and improvement, and how to connect real-time visibility to economic profit through supply chain performance improvement. To help with this challenge, Project 44 established a value engineering function to help companies quantify the ROI of our advanced visibility solution. And I'd like to rattle off some examples of ROI measurements that we have seen from value engineering engagements, just to give the audience an idea of what they can potentially attain from a ROI. 30 to 40% decrease in manual track and trace activities, 10 to 30% increase in labor efficiency in warehouses, 2 to 5% decrease in inventory, 30 to 50% decrease in late arrival penalties, 10 to 20% decrease in demurrage and detention costs. And the last one I will call out is a 1 to 2% decrease in overall transportation costs. So as you can see, there are quantifiable benefits to investing in an advanced visibility solution like Project 44, as we've certainly seen at Lenovo.
Before you start down this path of transforming your supply chain and being more digital and maximizing visibility and trying to work with your data, 9 times out of 10, the measurements that you use to measure the effectiveness of your organization prior to going down this journey is going to be the same exact KPIs and measurements that you use after you've gone through this transformation. So it's not like you have to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to measure myself and to determine if there is an ROI or there's efficiencies after we've gone through this journey. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be the same KPIs, the same metrics that is driving your business. And you should see, 3 to 5 percentage points improvements once you've gone down this journey. And if you don't think you will, you have to ask yourself, is it worth doing that? So I just wanted to add on to that.
That's great. This goes back to an earlier point that we made. None of this is possible without high fidelity data. It must be accurate, complete, timely, and normalized to extract the maximum value from it. If an organization doesn't trust the data, then they can't extract business insights to drive positive change. Tejuan, let's jump to another topic. Real-time visibility is still evolving. There's going to be more data, more capabilities available over time. What is Lenovo's long-term vision for visibility? And what will you focus on next?
Well, long-term, I think, we're going to continue to evolve and evaluate and iterate. But one thing that we're trying to do at Lenovo is really to look at all aspects and functions of the supply chain. So, during this first journey, it was an internal look, an internal view. How do we get rid of the mundane manual processes that our teams are having to deal with and automate as much as possible? Now, working with like you all, Project 44 and our colleagues at IBM to have an AI infrastructure or system of record to be able to pull in all that data that we have to have shipment visibility, right? To have order visibility, inventory visibility. I think next is really looking at the predictive and the prevention and what do we do with unstructured data. A question that we asked internally during an internal all hands meeting is what's the difference between structured data and unstructured data? And so structured data is that of which we can control. We can control the number of lines that we have in manufacturing. We can control which shipment lanes we use in logistics. But unstructured data is, what happens if, for example, a pandemic or weather or geopolitical situations, right? So really trying to get a grasp of what do we do with unstructured data and how do we maximize our supply chain leveraging that data? So I think that's really the next key area that we're going to focus on going forward. And then continuing just to leverage, we talked about earlier, blockchain, the data that comes from our blockchain activities, and really trying to build and empowering our customers to almost self-serve based off the data that we give them via AI, machine learning, or blockchain. So that's going to be our ongoing focus here.
I would like to ask a follow-up question related to your comments on unstructured data. Will you be leveraging your existing investment in the IBM Supply Chain Insight solution to analyze and extract value from that data? Or are you looking at different solutions for this capability? I think that would be helpful for this group to understand how you're going to do that.
Yeah, and yes, absolutely. So we're hoping or banking that the Sterling solution will be able to leverage that as part of their service stack. They're looking at unstructured data such as weather. They have a partnership with weather.com. So we're leveraging that data, being able to leverage their data scientists and architects to look at a number of shipping lanes, even inbound and outbound shipment lanes that we don't necessarily use, but some of their other partners use, and to be able to bring that in to be able to to equip us and empower us with being able to identify alternative aspects of shipping and for inbound based off of history, based off of weather interruptions or potential disruptions, along those different lanes. So without that partnership, without leveraging the technology behind Sterling and their ability to evaluate unstructured data, we would probably be invisible, right? We'd probably be making decisions based off of our own historical relationships with some of these shippers. But now with that partnership, we have a little bit more confidence and level of confidence on making decisions quicker than ever before, based off of their access to this unstructured data, based off of them being able to run algorithms and predictive analysis on said data. So we definitely value that relationship. And again, I mentioned earlier, you can certainly build something like that internally, but if that's not if that's not your focus area, right? If you're focused on executing and focused on your customers, a lot of enterprises don't have the expertise to build something like that internally. So we definitely appreciate our relationship with our partners like IBM and then certainly you guys at Project 44.
That is great. Thank you for that additional detail. Well, I want to thank everyone. This concludes the presentation, and now we would like to begin answering the questions submitted during the session. As a reminder, you can still submit questions through the Ask a Feature question or Ask a Question feature. Tejuan, I will start teeing up some questions and then we will take it from there. Tejuan, our first question is submitted from Joe, and he would like to know how we define high fidelity visibility data. Why don't we start by you giving your definition of high fidelity visibility data, and I will come over the top if I have anything to add.
Yeah, so high fidelity data, in my view, is data that we leverage and that we need. That's a necessity to make business decisions, and that data is visible to anyone from the working level all the way up to the C-suite. So the same data that I would see and leverage out of our AI solution or our AI platform would be the same data that our senior vice president or executive vice president of the data center group would see and use. So to be honest with you, every single data point or data attribute that one could use to make a business decision, I would consider as high fidelity data. So that goes back to why data accuracy and data quality is so important in this space.
That's a good explanation, Tejuan. I would like to add what I consider characteristics of high fidelity visibility data. First, it has to be complete and accurate. These are two very different things. Accurate data in an incomplete data set doesn't tell the whole story, so you're not going to get the value. And inaccurate data in a complete data set will certainly lead you down the wrong path to the wrong conclusion. And then you look at timeliness. This is also critical because you don't want to make decisions based on stale data. And Tejuan, as you have seen, a key value add of Project 44 is normalizing the data across multiple modes to ensure it can be leveraged, within your supply chain insights for analytics or any other system or use case without the need for data cleansing or carrier-specific mapping. The next question is from Sarah, and she's wondering how your real-time visibility efforts have impacted your relationships with customers.
Well, so our customers really drive everything we do in our supply chain. I mentioned earlier that a lot of our KPIs and our bonus payout is based off of how our customers rate us. And I can tell you, we're in I'm the director of cloud customer supply chain operations. And if you think of a lot of the cloud users and big data users out there, you can probably guess them. The Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons, the Verizons, we can go on and on. They are in this technology. They eat, sleep, and breathe this technology. And they require us to be able to have access and have visibility to our supply chain end to end, all the way to our second and third tier suppliers. So our interaction with them on a daily basis, we're leveraging these tools, leveraging the partnership that we have with Project 44 and IBM and others to be able to get them the data they need so that they can in turn be able to schedule and build out the data centers they need to support their customers. If you think about it, especially now in this age where the streaming content has grown, tremendously in the last 6 to 9 months. And some of these cloud customers are in need of big data, need of server space, need of server farms, data centers almost immediately. So we've had to navigate and leverage real-time data, real-time inventory status, real-time manufacturing capacity status to be able to build out rack solutions for some of these huge customers. So I couldn't imagine being able to solution some of the problems that we've had with some of the opportunities that we've had with some of these cloud customers now versus if we had the same issues 3 to 5 years ago. So definitely, we've gotten good feedback from our customers based off of how we've changed and transformed our supply chain to have more visibility.
That is consistent with the feedback that Project 44 receives from our customers. One of the key terms that always seems to come up is collaboration. Enabling their ecosystem to be more collaborative, whether it be upstream with suppliers or downstream with customers. Having a trusted, consistent set of data that all parties can leverage to improve efficiency is really powerful. For example, enabling Lenovo to share a subset of shipment data in a proactive way can really have a positive impact on the customer experience. Collaboration across the entire ecosystem is a key driver of Project 44's roadmap, and this includes carriers as well. So it looks like we have time for one more question. Let's see. This final question is coming from John, and he wants to know if Lenovo struggled to get carriers to join a visibility network, and if so, how did you overcome that?
Well, excellent question, John. So yes, that is definitely a challenge. And we started with some of the larger carriers that you could probably think of, the DHL, the FedExes, and what have you, to bring them on board. We leveraged APIs and our ASNs, advanced ship notifications from the carriers to be able to get data and get it into our tools. We mentioned SCI, that's one of the primary tools. But again, that's not our area of expertise. I mean, we're focused on PCs and tablets and mobile phones and servers, right? And manufacturing and getting devices to our customers. So that's where, looking at partnerships and leveraging your relationships with others in the industry that specializes in this area. That's why Project 44 is so key to our success now and into the future, because companies like Project 44 already has deep relationships with carriers and network, whether it be ocean or freight or, ocean or air or train. Whereas, it would take us years to be able to build up that relationship and investments that it'd be difficult to get approval internally to have to make that investment. So definitely look at, your relationships, look at your network, look at your ecosystem, understand what gaps you have to solutioning the problem, and can you find partners to solution those gaps and then make it a win-win. So Project 44 made it a win-win for us because they already have those deep relationships with our carrier network. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of carriers that it would have taken us forever to build relationships with. So that's key. Definitely key.
I appreciate that feedback. I think you touched on a really important point related to carrier relationships. Something that we pride ourselves in and is part of the Project 44 DNA is viewing and treating carriers as partners. Building strategic relationships is key to our network strategy and identifying how we can provide value to all parties, including carriers, freight forwarders, and all LSPs. By joining the Project 44 network, carriers can improve their ability to become carriers of choice for shippers because of that added collaboration. In addition, we work with carriers on continuous improvement of their data quality, which benefits all members of the P44 network and ecosystem. Unfortunately, it looks like we are at the end of our time. Tejuan, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed the conversation. I want to thank all of the attendees as well for spending time with us during today's session. Please fill out the survey located at the bottom of your screen labeled survey. And again, thank you for joining us today and enjoy the rest of Edge 2020 Live.
Oh, thank you, Jason. I enjoyed being a part of this.
Yeah, thank you, Tejuan. This was great, and looking forward to talking to you soon.
Definitely.
All right, thank you, everybody.